Hi book lovers, and welcome or welcome back to February's wrap-up. And February was such an interesting month. It felt so much longer than it should because it's only 28 days long, but I think because of the move and everything, February just felt like so much happened. And also reading wise, such up and downs. Like you will see, I have a rating for everything. You will see I have star ratings from 1 star to 5 stars, so we had it all. But before we go into the books, let's look at the statistics. And also because of the move, I don't have any of the books like physically right now. They're packed right now and I'm gonna put them all up. I did read and finish 9 books and then a 10th one that was a DNF, which sounds a lot more, but I don't think I read that much because I listened to a couple of those ones and there are also a few novellas in here. And then a 10th book that I started but also DNF because it was not for me, but we'll talk about that as well. And you can also see in terms of page numbers, I read about 1,900 pages, so just under 200 pages, which, you know, I usually read a bit more, but that's also okay, you know. It's not only about pages and all of that, it's about the enjoyment of reading. I enjoyed some of the books, really didn't enjoy others, so I feel like the average rating of 3.79 is still quite high. I read a lot of romances in February, but you know, it's also the month of Valentine's Day, so I feel like that's very fitting. 1 dark romance and then 2 fantasy books, and quite an even number of series versus standalones. And when we look at the February TBR, I feel like I did a good job. I read 3 books from my TBR and then one of those books I DNF'd. And guys, I did not finish Blood Sisters, which is a problem. Like, I really, really need to finish that book. But it was not in February, unfortunately. But yeah, that's the February statistics. Now let's talk about the books. And the first one, oh, I really don't want to talk about this book. I hate it so much. It's Leave Me Behind by K.M. Moronova. And wow, like this book, it's kind of my own fault. Like, I knew going into that book that it would probably be not for me because it's a bully romance, it's dark romance, it's also military romance. And those things are usually not what I hugely enjoy, but I saw this book in store and I was like, oh my god, it looks so cool. It was also indie published and in a store, and then I saw that I could also read it for free on Kindle Unlimited, so I was, why not? You know, guys, sometimes you should just leave things and trust your gut instinct that, you know, when those content warnings at the beginning stand and you feel like, oh, this is probably not for you, then maybe don't continue reading it. And I feel like I didn't even have the biggest problems with those content warnings in terms of, you know, it was a bully romance. Yes, I don't enjoy that particularly, but that wasn't even why I didn't like this book. This book was just all over the place and just, I'm sorry, but just so bad, especially the ending. I think that pissed me off so much. And right after, I voice messaged one of my book besties that I told about the book, and I was like, oh my god, I'm so mad. Like, that type of feeling where you almost hate yourself for reading that book doesn't happen a lot, but it happened with this one. And also the whole like military setting, she did clear it up at the beginning that it's not that realistic, but I feel like with this book, we were so far away from like real world that you could label this fantasy. And the ending, as I said, was just really what made it so much worse. Like within the book, like it was still intriguing and, you know, I kind of wanted to find out how this would end, and it was very fast paced. But overall, I honestly thought it was at one point a romance with white shoes. So, and there was a brother situation and it just confused me. But that ending, I really don't want to talk about this book anymore. And I mean, it was from the beginning of the month and it's such a long time ago now that I definitely feel better. But if I would have like told you right after, I feel like this rant could go on for forever. But I just don't want to give this book more power because it already like didn't make me feel good. Probably gonna talk about this book one more time when we talk about worst books of the year because that's definitely a contender. But for now, like, I just want to erase that book from my memory. And because of that feeling right after, like immediately I was like, I need to read something else right now. And it was super late when I finished that book. So I didn't want to really start something where, you know, when you start a book, it takes a couple of pages to really get into. So I thought, you know what, last year, a bunch of authors came out with Valentine's Day themed novellas, and I would just read one of those because they're very short, so you're very quickly into the story. And I went to my trustworthy author, Abby Jimenez, and read her novella, which is Worst Wingman Ever. I will tell you guys that I know nothing about this book anymore. I can't tell you anything about this book. Not because it was bad, it's just like those novellas are super quick to go by. It was definitely something I needed. I feel like that book saved me from going to a very bad place after that other book. I think because Abby Jimenez is one of my favorite authors, and all her 3 books that I read so far from her, you know, they did hit really hard. So obviously this novella didn't hit hard, and it was a bit disappointing, but not by any means a bad romance. I also read 2 other ones from that collection. I also read the one from Christina Lauren, The Exception to the Rule, and the one by Ashley Poston, With Any Luck. I like those 2 more, and I remember more from those 2 books, but yeah, I'm not gonna rate novellas. Like, they're a fun time, but as I said, I feel mostly indifferent towards them. However, after that very difficult start to the month, I'm so glad that that streak didn't continue, and we went from like one of the worst books I've ever read to one of the best books. Some of like my most anticipated books came out in February, and one of them was Deep End. And I also vlogged my whole reading experience for Deep End and Rebel Witch, so I have a vlog out for that. I'll link it down below if you want to see more of my thoughts. Deep End, oh my goodness, I ate this book up. I understand that it might not be for everyone, but to me, oh my god, it was perfection. Like, there was so much tension. I absolutely loved it, and I can't even like really explain it. It's just something in those pages that reminded me of how much I love reading, and I kind of feel like if you really enjoy Ellie Hazelwood's work in general, then you would also enjoy that book. And it did feel a little bit like Check and Mate and Not in Love by her made a baby. It's a college romance between a swimmer and a diver, and it definitely focuses a lot on our main character Scarlett, who also goes through her own things. And I feel like for me, maybe what I also liked is that the novel in general felt very fresh and modern, and it did have some things that might be, you know, a bit odd or complicated in real life, and also characters were definitely not black and white, very much in the gray zone, but that's stuff that I like, and I like faulty characters because I feel like that's just, you know, how life is. Like, we're not all black and white, and I definitely liked what Ellie Hazelwood did. But I understand that some might not really like this. It's quite a spicy book. I feel like she could have gotten a lot more spicy because the nature of the relationship is that they both enjoy a specific type of sexual encounter, and that's how they connect. So I feel like because of that setup, it could have been even more spicy, and she also left a lot to the imagination. I think it was a good choice that she kind of compared it herself in the book to 50 Shades of Grey. It's not 50 Shades of Grey at all, but you kind of go there because of how they describe the relationship or what they're into, but you don't really get any like specifics, to be honest. Like, I feel like she could have been a bit more explicit, but that's just me. However, the main thing you have to take away is that I think this book is amazing, and as I said, more thoughts on the vlog. And as I said in the same vlog, I also read The Rebel Witch because I found an early copy in one of the bookstores, and I was so excited. And because this is probably the book I was actually anticipating the most, I wanted to prepare my read, and I actually reread The Crimson Moth or Heartless Hunter, whatever, you know, your copy is of that first book in this duology. And The Crimson Moth was a 5-star read to me. I loved it so much, and the reread just really confirmed that. Like, still a 5-star read. By the way, Deep End obviously also a 5-star read, and I kind of just wanted to refresh my memory, but I loved it so much. I just loved the whole setting with the witches and just how powerful like woman felt that way. I don't know, I just really enjoyed that, and I also enjoyed the romance a lot. And what I liked about the second book when I went into that, it kind of started exactly how the other one ended, and in a very like fast-paced, getting a lot of action way, which I love, because I was kind of scared that we would slow down to like then build something up, but no, like a lot of things happen and it's back to back to back action almost. almost to a point where I was like, can those characters not just like please breathe? But I just loved it. I was there for the journey. I feel like it read a bit more new adult than the first one actually. Like I felt the whole like young adult aspect a bit more in that book. And I think the series could have probably been also a trilogy if you would have focused a bit more on the like complicated feelings because of what happened to the characters, and maybe that's why I also think it felt a bit more new adult. I would have wished to gotten a bit deeper with some of the feelings, and also for the two main characters, like there was a lot of back and forth and I liked it, but I also think we could have gotten there a bit quicker. And I feel like their dynamic kind of reminded me of Peyton and Kai from Reckless, like the second book in the Powerless trilogy. Rebel Witch was still so amazing to read though. Since I anticipated this book so highly, like obviously my expectations were here, and it's always more difficult to meet high expectations, but I feel like this book mostly did. It wasn't quite a 5-star read, but it was almost. And I love this universe and this duology so much, and I'm definitely interested to read more from the author. And then around Valentine's Day, I wanted a Valentine's Day themed book, and another book that also came out in February is First Time Caller by B.K. Borison, I'm pretty sure. And I've read 2 books from her in that other series that she has, like Light Lark Farms or something like that. And I did like her books. I would say though, for me, I can't even really explain it, but I don't connect on a very deep level with her writing. I like it, but it's never like revolutionary or like making me feel super giddy the way, for example, Ellie Hazelwood's work does sometimes. So I didn't expect like the best book. I did listen to this book actually, and I think it was quite nice because this book is about a radio show where the daughter of our main character calls to get some love advice for her mom because she thinks her mom is a bit lonely. And when her mom finds out and gets on the phone with that host from this very small like radio show who gives love advice, this call goes very viral because they have like an instant connection and just a very honest talk. So the producers are like, oh my god, this is working. And I mean, it's radio. Like in general, I thought it was a bit unrealistic to think that this would get super viral, and it just felt a bit outdated because of the medium, and that they wouldn't like try out like a podcast or anything, but would actually try to make it into this radio show to get our main character. I forgot the names, guys. I never know the names. I think his name was Aiden, and I don't know her name anymore. But the woman goes onto the show like, I don't know, once or twice a week, and they kind of make it like a bachelorette radio show for her to find her dates. But actually the host Aiden, who she got along with very well on the phone, is also super attractive in real life, and it's getting harder and harder for him to see her like going off on dates, and for both of them to kind of ignore their attraction. I kind of didn't really get why they thought it was not like in the possibilities to just date. Like I think their reasons not to really go for it were very like thin and almost, you know, fabricated because it was a book and they couldn't get together early, so we needed some arguments why they couldn't be together. But I liked the book. I think it has one of the most beautiful covers ever. It's just that it wasn't like one of my absolute favorites, but it was still pretty good. After that I read Spiral, which is the second book in, or I don't know what the series is called, I will put it up on the screen, but this is a book I waited super long for because I read the first book I think in 2022 maybe, or maybe 2023, I don't know. It was indie published then. A publisher took it up since then and they like re-released it, and everything just took a lot longer for the second book to come out. So I was super excited to finally get it. And the first one was a hockey college romance, and we still follow the guys from the hockey team, but in this book they're actually already in like the pro league, at least the guy that this book focuses on. And obviously also forgot the names. I could look them up, but just bear with me. It's the boy and the girl in this book, and he's the rookie of the season who's good, but he just hasn't gotten a goal yet, and he's very in his head about it. Also the team kind of puts a lot of pressure on it, and even though he's like the opposite of being a playboy, the media kind of took it up because he's very good looking and he comes off very like open and everything on camera. So whenever he's seen with any female person around him. The media puts it in a way where parties so much, that's why he hasn't scored yet on the team, and that's why the team also puts pressure on him. And then we have our female main character, and she's a ballet dancer who wants to secure the main role in Lake Swan, but she hears that the ballet doesn't just want the best dancer, but also the most social media exposure. So when she meets our guy, the hockey player, who has so much media exposure and also kind of needs a stable girlfriend to get away from the whole like party and playboy image, they strike the deal to fake date so she could gain more followers and, you know, he can clean up his image. And I think on paper this plot obviously works. We've seen it lots and lots of times before. That's also why I think maybe this wasn't like revolutionary, because it reminded me of a lot of other books. I still enjoyed this one though. The thing why I think this plot didn't really work in this scenario though is that the reasons why the media think he's like a playboy were, again, so thin and fabricated, and when he's like the complete opposite, like it just didn't really make sense why the media focused on something that wasn't there at all. The couple also didn't play really into the fake dating, like pretty much from the beginning it felt like they were just dating and there wasn't even like really a fake element to it. So as a reader I was wondering why we're not just calling it dating, or why there are reasons for both of them to not just say let's date. I love the whole found family aspect and the whole team. Like, I'm also excited for the other books in this series. That was the last book that I finished in February, but let's talk about my DNF. My DNF was Signs of Cupidity, and I especially wanted to read this in February for like Valentine's Day, because this book just screamed Valentine's Day, and I really liked the writing style. Like, I started it and it was super fun. However, when I looked up the rest of the series, because this one was the first of the series, I saw that that book was a why choose romance or reverse harem, and I just don't really like those type of romances. And I think if it would have been just a standalone book, it would have been fine. But since it's a series, and even though the first book isn't super thick, I just didn't really want to get invested in all of that. So I actually donated that book to a free library that I found in Cape Town. In that same free library, I actually found 2 books from the ACOTAR series that I haven't read yet. And I was like, you know what? I feel like it's a fair trade. I'll get them. So I actually gained books from that free library as well, which, you know, is always super nice. But yeah, nothing bad to say about Signs of Cupidity. I think especially because I like the writing style so much, I'm actually super excited to get into her other series that's super popular. You know, the one with like glow, the cages on top. I'll just put it up on the screen. I feel like it was a bit unprepared for this video, so I'm sorry. I hope you still liked it and got maybe a few recommendations or books that I think you should stay away from. If you like this video, please give it a like and also subscribe for more bookish content. And I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!